I waited 11 years for the fifth Scream movie, which I will from now onwards refer to as 5 Cream, because not only did I have to wait 11 years, but I also had to watch the movie fall prey to that pretentious one-word naming convention that seems to mostly affect biopics, so movies based on true stories, and reboots. Hello, my name is Gil, and I need a drink before doing this video because it is going to render my mood indefinitely in Paris. To keep up with the tradition of incorporating the numbers in the title, Scream 6 is now going to be called SCREAIV. Okay, a compromise. I will write it as SCREAIV, but I will just say Scream 6 in this video. Also, I will be spoiling this movie, so you have been warned. That being said, you no longer have the right to get mad at me when I tell you that the killer is... I'm joking. Not about there being spoilers, but I will not talk about the reveals just yet. At first glance, the film looked pretty healthy, promising even. Similar runtime, the trailer was decent, and I did feel a strong saccharine longing after watching it, but it had been a while. I also saw that the original glazed trio was back, so that is Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. So that was enheartening, I guess. I did also take note of Jenna Ortega, whom I only recognized from X at the time, would be starring in it alongside Melissa Barrera, who I would see again in Abigail this year. As for the rest of the cast, yeah, just a bunch of 20-somethings playing teenagers. Some casting choices were worse than others, let's just say that. So this made me think, oh shit! Tom Cruise, now is not the time. Let's move this over just a little bit. My first point is that the movie became too big and popular for its own good. This is something to which I hinted in my last video, so it may or may not sound familiar depending on whether or not you have seen that, but when a movie has overwhelming potential to become a box office success, you just know that it is going to not only feel different, but to varying extents fail to break down the fundamental hallmarks of the first however many good films. In other words, they would not fully or exactly encapsulate the overall feeling of the movie. I really mean to say that they would not be able to balance either the tonal and or plot complexities or technical elements, like the choreography of these adolescent teens in their chase scenes. Why is this? Well, let's just say that narratives suffer when money influences the premise on which it is built, the structure and the direction in which it goes. If you are already a horror fan or a fan of the Scream franchise, then please bear with me because I am going to be going over some pretty basic concepts here, but I think that it will be beneficial to say these things, to say the least. God, what can I say? Some people do not think about these things and just watch the movies for enjoyment, so some of that is for them. The basics. In every Scream movie, there is encultured meta-commentary on the horror movie scene of the time. Scream movies are resultantly contextual media, which is to say that they are influenced by the socio-political context of the time at which they were released. So that is true even if the influence is them intentionally borrowing on the movie's part. The narrative structure, character decisions, and overall self-awareness too changes with the time. Why? Because we as the audience, our media expectations and heretofore relations change over time. Horror movies and constitutively slasher flicks have evolved over time in very interesting ways, mind you, finding ways to tell stories, choreograph physical struggles, and subvert our expectations, especially in whodunits. You see, my one viewer, Scream is the 5th movie in the franchise called Scream. There is a Scream series, but we do not talk about that here because this is a safe space. Thank you very much. But anyway, with every subsequent film, there is a satirization of the horror genre and the rudimental logic of it. They satirize slasher movies to begin with, but as people have become better acquainted with the horror genre after many decades of exposure to it, the movie's formulas have become pretty predictable. Alright. Zullen we eens kijken wat we beginnen? It critiques slasher film tropes. Simple. It revitalized the slasher subgenre of horror by addressing the repetitive tropes and conventions that were utilized en masse in the 80s. The self-awareness in this movie and the 3 films to follow are not unconscionable, so they do not undermine the tension of the movie or the humanity of the characters, which is incredible seeing this is the first of its kind. Being a sequel itself, it focuses on sequels and their tropes. You'll start to notice a pattern here. Again, it highlights them while technically committing some of those tropes itself. However, it manages to keep the characters grounded and humanistic so as not to feel like a parody, and then it also does a lot to properly interfuse those tropes into its plotline. Scream 3. The third one. The self-awareness was aptly dialed back in this movie. This one is the movie to introduce the idea of all bets being off and how everyone can die, as you have probably heard in the latest Scream movie or movies.
Okay, the way I see it, someone is out to make a sequel to the requel. And rule 3, no one is safe. Legacy characters, cannon fodder at this point. Oh, and that's not even the worst part. The worst part is, franchises are just continuing episodic installments designed to boost an IP, which means main characters are completely expendable now too.
There is a commentary on Hollywood, but I will not focus on that too much, since it mostly abandoned that idea in the 3 sequels to come. Being the final act of what I guess was maybe, probably, possibly going to be a trilogy, and just that, it focuses on tropes of trilogies and the pressure to be unconventional or to have an extravagant finale, which this movie was in many ways. It is also a well-known fact that they dialed down the gore due to real-world events completely irrelevant to the series. Maybe we're all just used to hearing about school shootings at this point, but then again, shootings were not even new then, so... Sorry, in how many wars was the US involved in the year 2000 that resulted in death tolls far outweighing the overpublicized tragedy? That was a rhetorical question. Wow. Yeah, the odds of this sequel being any better than the first 2 sequels to the original were so minute that I feel Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, the director and writer of the movie, of the original as well as the 2nd and 4th movie, pulled a miracle. This one, of course, again critiques the very kind of movie it is, that being a sequel and a reboot. However, it does not stop there. It worked with the idea of the effect of social media and the youth's persevering obsession with fame, or at least most people's obsession. Nope, not me. I hate everything.
Hello, you called?
No, I wasn't referring to you. Anyway, Scream 4 is the first and probably the last film to, and I might just be speaking for myself, but to shock us, captious viewers, with the big reveal at the end, because it was truly refreshing, as was the intro, in my opinion. It was playful and comedic without relying on the actors to communicate those tones, at least not so much. If only they did not overexpose it. Yes. 5 cream.
Oh, shit.
this one. I will talk about what this one aimed to do, but I will not move on to Scream 6 because I do not believe that that one really has anything to say or add to the series. I will strangle that one with my bare hands on the floor of an unfurnished apartment later in the video, so do not worry, I will not forget. Being a legacy sequel, this one, of course, has a bit to say about legacy sequels, which are also apparently called requels at this point. It is actually the first movie to completely sideline the legacy characters in favor of a new cast of teens. This is referred to as handing down the torch. The original glazed actors are old now, and the studio wanted to appeal to Gen Z, which can only be done by including a bunch of snarky adults playing teens, because we can only relate to people our own age, apparently. I will admit that 5 Cream had something to say that might have been special in writing, not Kevin Williamson's writing, mind you. However, it is really the new directors and producers' executions, the choices made for the movie, and the difficulty the new writers would have in crafting a narrative that feels fresh and consistent in spite of taking place at many of the same locations the original did. What is there not to like about the movie? Well, I guess we could start with the... I did not like any of the new teens that they brought in. Every actor, except for maybe the one they killed off, did what they were directed to do, I think, but the characters were flat. I especially did not like the shift in the dialogue. I really hope that did not come through. Let's just turn the volume up on that, or down on that, what? As I was saying, I did not like the shift in the dialogue, and this is with regards to the banter and behavior of our new adolescent teens. When I watch Scream and its 3 legitimate sequels... Wait, I forgot to mention that 5 Cream is the first movie not directed by Wes Craven since he died. Right. So yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that when he died, he took the franchise's vitality along with him. Anyone else? I'm not saying that there's absolutely no one out there intelligent and creative enough to build upon what he started on a fateful night in Q2 1996, but it was the power vacuum after his death that resulted in its destabilization. In order to have a good Scream movie, Craven and Williamson sort of have to be signed on together to write and direct it. Oh god, it's noisy now. But anyway, remember Scream 3? Williamson did not write that one, even though Craven, I believe he directed it. And then Williamson only served as a producer on 5 Cream. So, point in case? Case in point. Yeah! Sorry for the noise and interruption. Where was I? Oh, right. Yes, so Craven did direct all 4 of the previous installments of the Scream series. No, not that one. Focus! Back to Wes Craven. I believe that he had a very deep understanding of the franchise's tone and that he knew exactly how to balance the horror of the movies with the meta stuff, the self-awareness and commentary on the genre and pop culture. He knew how to adapt Williamson's screenplays, in other words, but then he was replaced by writers and directors who not only lack that intricate understanding of what works and what doesn't for this series in particular, and in consideration of the tone, but writers and directors who had and still have yet to learn to make a solid, realistic film. That is to say that they all lack the nuance with which to approach creating this kind of movie. If you have seen my TLDW or Too Long Didn't Watch for my last video, then you will understand what I mean when I say that the directors of 5 Cream and Scream 6 see grey where turquoise was painted. Yeah, the characters were all pretty uninteresting, at least to me. Like, not only are the most interesting things about them merely their relation to the principal cast, but they do not feel like real people. I saw a movie called Hellfest a few years ago in the cinema. Well, it was more than just a few years ago. Anyway, it reminds me of this movie. Why? It's the dialogue. It is a speak that I hear in films nowadays, as well as in reality to some extent. It is awkward and innocent and antisocial in a way. It is shy and super personal and informal, yet it is detached and also witty. It is not serious, but sarcastic and oftentimes cynical. Let me give you an example.
Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Hey, it's been great. It's good to see you. I'm starting to get the feeling our friends think something's gonna happen to us.
Really? No, I hadn't noticed that at all.
Really? You don't get that vibe at all? It's very
Just
subtle.
you're picking up on that.
Yeah, it's just me. Thanks, Quinn. That was so subtle of you. I'm sorry I'm so shitty at ring toss. Okay. I was honestly trying my best, but I think my game of choice is the one where you're like, here's $5. The guy's like, here's a pretzel.
So you pay for this?
Yeah, but at an incredibly fast rate.
It's so coiffed.
It really is.
It's beautiful.
You should get one of them.
I was gonna say I think you should, but
well, I can. So nice to be in hell.
Yep. Nice to be in hell.
Best place to be.
Done? Good. Yeah, so you see this writing style utilized in romance movies a lot. Think 500 Days of Summer, for example. I guess a good word to use to describe it would be millennial. The dialogue, I think, is indicative of a shift in the tonal balance of the movie as a whole, not just the writing, from that of a self-aware realism to that of a self-aware horror comedy, much like Ready or Not. Gee, I wonder why I thought of that horror comedy in particular. Anyway, I felt that they leaned way too hard into the comedy and meta-commentary this time around. Whereas in the past the cast had an awareness of horror movies and horror tropes, they were nevertheless stuck in a situation that was very real to them in spite of how it might conform to horror movie logic. We now have a cast who is expressively self-aware and flamboyant compared to the subsequent cast, I guess. Yeah, that's the problem. Their humanity. These did not feel like Homo sapiens sapiens to me. It felt like nothing. Expendable, just like the other friends and mutuals of the principal cast from the past. Yet they are to replace them? Again, the actors did a fine job themselves. Most of them did, at least. I just believe that they were misdirected and that the writers for the movie did not know how to approach writing for them. Anyway, I am seeing involvement from one of the two writers and one of the two directors of this movie, Five Cream, in a few other successful, admittedly entertaining horror comedies, such as Ready or Not and Abigail of this year, actually. But are those movies really tonally consistent with or appropriate for this series? I wonder. Five Cream felt like one big joke. It overcomplicated its story and the already complex backgrounds of our principal cast. It grasped at excuses and implemented a bunch of plot conveniences and chronological and spatial inconsistencies. Gaffes? Speaking of excuses, it tried so hard to connect our two new Latina leads to the original glazed characters, but there are only so many bastards and mistresses and family secrets one can bear before they start asking questions like, wait, am I related to Sidney Prescott? Also, to get a weak performance out of Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox takes a lot of talent. I wonder what they did or said to make them both look confused and bored half of the time.
You're gonna put more cops on her room, right?
Yes, and I can move you to a private floor. Deputy Vincent knows what he's doing. You'll be safe.
Check the door. Joey and Pacey, check the front door. Jen, you and Cliff, get the flashlight from the spot. Quit tripping out. This is just Dawson up with old, tired tricks. There's no psychopath in this house.
Yes, there is. Now this gets stuff even worse. When your bizarre mother...
I don't know, I think she's kind of sexy. Huh?
She's
Halloween 2 and Halloween Ends cold, they want their implausibly understaffed hospitals back. But really, when was the last time you saw a hospital without cameras and with a completely empty floor to dedicate to someone? This movie came out during COVID and was actually pushed back because of COVID, by the way, so...
He killed 2 more people. Wes and his mother.
You killed the sheriff? You can do that? Hey, where are you?
I'll call you right back.
No, Sam.
Not here. We should be out there looking for him.
Who's at the hospital? Who's watching my sister?
Just heard about the sheriff. They needed me here. Where are you going?
Wait a second. Do you mean to tell me that this infamous town has so few officers on duty during the day that one guarding a victim of a still free and active knife-wielding maniac cannot just rely on his fellow policemen to handle some homicide however many kilometers away?
We should be out there looking for him.
Who's at the hospital?
Who's watching my sister?
Oh, God. Where are you going?
Drive! Come on, let's go!
Join Pacey, check the flashlight from upstairs closet.
Damn it!
Should you really be making a phone call right now?
Wait a minute, how did they go from being in broad daylight to night? I thought that Melissa Barrera and Dewey were rushing to the hospital because Jenna Ortega was unattended. How many hours away does the ex-sheriff live? I mean, she had to be there earlier in the movie, so it can't be that far. Five Cream was not a totally detestable sin offender. Yes, I just made that up. Anyway, it may be that I was hungry and excited for more Scream movies, but Five Cream was, unlike the horror that would be Scream 6, enjoyable at times. The opening scene was nostalgic, if not unforgivably derivative. Simply seeing Neve Campbell move the muscles around her mouth was nice, and seeing Courtney Cox try was good enough. Like I said, it had something to say about movies. The new directors are just too untalented and obtuse to measure up to Craven. What? Okay, so, my laptop just died. So many interruptions today. Round of applause for Razer laptops, everyone. Scream 6. If there was ever a doubt in my mind that Five Cream is the oafish corporate lit chore that it is, then it was extinguished upon watching this one. Now, I think that the movie was supposed to address the fact that it is, as if Five Cream did not already do this, cementing the Scream series as an everlasting, long-running thing. I think that they were trying to make light of the evolution of the franchise in general from usually independent films to, say it with me class, big budget blockbuster movies. They seem to want to up the ante here. Why do I say that? Well, it takes place in New York, for one. You probably could not upscale any harder than that. They also seemed to me to drive home that point of no character being safe, seeing that they feel they need to keep the death toll high and mighty, or gory. In other words, they were very concerned with keeping us engaged, even though they never really did the work that would have been making us, or me in particular, care about anyone in the movie. Okay, so I read online that it is supposed to show that horror franchises, as they progress, often become more self-referential to the point of losing their original essence, and how our desensitization to violence is encouraging horror filmmakers to intensify the brutality. But I did not really get that upon watching the movie. Well, that could also be construed as yet another fault in it, because it crudely adapts the cliches it highlights. Scream 6, in almost every way possible, hyperbolized its own style of delivering meta-commentary and addressing its role in the Scream series. It has completely lost that style of character development that, while it served as character development in the past, was also illusory. This actually brings me to what made the original so special, and that is the masterful dialectical multi-purposing of just about every line of dialogue, action, absence, etc. Just like in reality, Scream's villains are imperfect. The seeds they sown by the end of the film were apparent all along, and therefore their behavior, presence, absence, clothing, lines, they all hint towards the truth, especially after your first watch. It is not just tonal balance or realistic dialogue or good acting or subversion of expectations that makes a good Scream movie a good Scream movie, for it is also the inscrutable articulation of the littlest detail. That is why the first four's rewatchability is so strong. Like Hereditary, for example, you could watch it 4, 5 times or more and pick up on new details and hints every single time. Violence. There was a mention of desensitization to violence. I do not really care about that, but then again, does anyone? I mean, we live in a society that glorifies violence so long as it is being committed in a condescending, delegatory way that is, in other words, a top-down way with regards to class and hierarchy. Of course we are desensitized. Most of us are taught how to fend for ourselves and that we ought to fend for ourselves and not expect handouts or assistance. We are made into individuals responsible for feeding, clothing, and healing ourselves. If we fail to escape our circumstances or end up in debt, then we failed as people. The world is a very violent and cold place, so it really is no wonder why there's so much violence in it. It is no wonder why this movie and these types of movies appeal to us. We are able to stomach more and more as time goes on. Still, I think that criticism is evocative of Hollywood's tendency to make up standards for itself. We just want good movies. I don't want to waste any more time talking about desensitization. So, has anyone noticed how privileged the characters in each movie really are? The relative opulence of these people's lives and how it's never really addressed is actually quite staggering. I think that it began as a sort of embrace of the convention that is writing your horror film around straight, white, upper middle class teens or young adults, seeing that Craven and Williamson left next to no stones unturned. But in the end, I think that they just kept up that trend of total financial security because it's easier than changing the storyline in classes of our protags. I did not know when it would be most appropriate to mention this, but I also wonder what these people's obsession is with getting stabbed in the stomach in particular. What the actual cue a compilation of the various occasions in which someone gets stabbed in the stomach, please? Editing Gale, I know that you do not feel like going through the effort to compile all of this, but do it anyway.
No.
No is an inadequate response. Try again.
Ich bin besorgt. Was ist mis mit dir?
Do you think I made it inside your house before you could rearm?
I'm coming!
Get the other. The head.
What?
You have to shoot them in the head, or they always come back.
Joel!
Sounds about right.
Stop me!
What do you think? Trap.
I got you okay.
Because our movie has fucking stakes! Because anyone can die in a requel.
That's not funny.
You're on fire. Like meat.
You got a problem here, guy?
Recognize this?
A note to the optimists out there, I apologize for all the negativity. I'm just very passionate about this series, and I was taught that if you have nothing disparaging to say, then don't say it at all. And then a note to the pessimists out there. Wasn't this just grand? It sounds cheesy, but the Scream series did inevitably become what it originally sought to satirize. I know that it's already been said, but that's just the truth of it. It succumbed to the perils of success, its own success. And for that, in recognition of its non-feasance, I deem the latest Scream movies to be imperfect. Hey, while it may be seconds for you, I am actually recording this weeks later because I realized that I forgot to do a thing or two. Nothing big. I forgot to actually rate the movies. Dramatic, but let's go ahead and initiate this thing, but not too quickly because I have to go watch Alien Romulus again after doing this, so I can review that malefactive scapegrace of a sequel. Yes, I am purposefully using conspicuously aberrant diction so as not to give away my thoughts on that just yet. I also just realized that I was not very consistent in the way I referred to the latest Scream sequels, so I apologize for that. I recall saying that I would say Scream 5, but then put 5 Cream on the screen instead, and then there was a similar arrangement for Scream 6, but let's hope that no one noticed. Right, so I will rate all 6. I will rate all 6 Scream movies in chronological order. Cronus would be so proud of me right now, but yeah, let me make this quick, relatively. Scream. I give you an 8.5 out of 10, which is going to have to be rounded up to a 9 out of 10 because IMDb. I do not know why I use that site instead of Rotten Tomatoes or Letterboxd. I guess that I just hate all of their UIs and see no reason to switch. Side note, second side note, I just looked at the rating and saw that I originally gave it an 8 out of 10. Of course, upon aging 8 years, I changed my mind. Third side note, I'm standing, so let's not cut off my head. It's so handy, I can see myself. Anyway, Scream 2, you are getting a 7 out of 10. You are a really good sequel, and you paved the way for your successors, inspiring the simple method by which to decide upon the next movie's narrative. That method being, of course, to satirize incongruence with the movie's ordinal placement with respect to the whole collection, so the greater sequence. I wonder if that actually made any sense. In essence, the formula is to embody the essence of the type of sequel it is. That is what Scream 2 started. Scream 3, you get a 6.5 out of 10, but then again, I will call it a 6 out of 10 for IMDb. I don't need to do that, you know what IMDb is. It tried to harp on second sequels, so third movies within trilogies, but it missed the mark for Scream fans, or at least it did for a while. I think that it has gotten better over time, not so unlike Alien Cubed, for example, or I cannot actually think of another trilogy where the third actually aged all that well. But that does remind me that I also need to see Terrifier 3. I actually really liked the first, but I detest the second one, so I have no idea how I will feel about this upcoming one. Has anyone else seen the news about that? So dramatic. Anyway, I actually enjoy Scream 3 now that I have seen what has become of the Scream series. Of movies. Scream series of movies. Stop it. Scream 4, you get a 7 out of 10. Congratulations. I actually wanted to give you a 7.5 out of 10, but I know that I'm probably just a little bit biased because this was actually the first that I was old enough to see when it was released way back when, in 2011. 5 Cream, you get a 4 out of 10. So it's funny, I initially gave it a 3 out of 10, but I think that it was just because I was emotional at the time. I did wait 11 years after all. But yeah, I think that I also needed to behold the series' declination to come. It's been a flustering conferring of perspective unto me, to say the least. Yes, indeed, it was not until I saw Scream 6 that I grasped the relative goodness of the fifth one. Yeah, to be honest, there's not much goodness to be had, but if you scrape down the sides of the peanut butter jar, you are sure to get at least half a spoonful. Scream 6, you get a 3 out of 10, but yeah, do I even really need to justify this one at all? I do not think so. I have already given it way too much attention, so back to the trenches with you, my unsatisfactory steed. Ugh. There were a few other things that I wanted to mention, but then I thought, I can just talk about these things in a follow-up video because honestly it's a bit easier, and this video is already going to be so long, so I will go ahead and do that. Stay tuned. It will probably be an extraneous commentary, if I'm being honest. Nevertheless, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I mean, if you made it this far, then the odds are probably in my favor. I would also like to say thank you to anyone who comments literally anything or likes the video. I love getting feedback and hearing what you all think, no matter how brief the comments. I appreciate that. You guys, you know that I love interacting with you guys down there as well. You know? You guys? Yeah, so I will read and reply to most, if not all, of the comments. So definitely let me know how you would rate each of the Scream movies and whether or not you share some of my criticisms of the latest Scream sequels. Yeah, I would like to know if you have critiques that I did not mention. I'm curious. And then in case the rating did not make it obvious enough, my list of Scream movies from my favorite to least favorite is going to be Scream, Scream 2, Scream 4, Scream 3, 5 Cream, Scream, and Scream 6. Well, what do you think? To which degree are the latest Scream sequels imperfect? Why don't you look at that? It's dinner time.